Hey, folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, it's good to have you back, man.
Thanks, Shawn. It's good to be back. But, I've been a little bit worried. I was really going to ask our editors and our bosses to do a wellness check on you because if I'm not mistaken, you wrote a Lions column where I think you pretty much have them in the Super Bowl. And then you actually wrote a hockey column. So I'm not, are you okay? Is it okay? Everything okay?
Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. I'm working on a Pistons column because the draft is, we're recording this the day before the draft, so we're not going to get into that really because we don't know who they're going to take. And you're going to say, okay, well, why are we going to talk about the Red Wings? Well, their draft's not till next week, so this is a little bit more timely. But so I'm working on a pre-draft Pistons column, then we'll have another Pistons column, maybe two more. But
okay, that's more the Shawn I know.
The Lions are the story. Right now,
in
aren't
June,
they?
Or the story in June, of course. We can't not talk about the Lions in June.
Well, no, it's really something. I was talking about this on another podcast, and actually just with some other colleagues and friends about people just can't get enough of this team right now. And I was actually, I hope we can do this, Carlos, and not get in trouble and alienate our superiors. But I was talking about Mike O'Hara, the longtime great beat writer for the Detroit News, and actually works for the Detroit Lions, works for their website, who's been around the team since the 70s. And he was actually, and this was a conversation,
1870s or 1970s?
19, yeah, right.
Okay. All right.
He was actually not arguing, but suggesting that he hasn't felt this kind of buzz and anticipation from just the metropolitan area and Lions fans everywhere, really. They're Detroiters, as we know, are spread out all over the country. He said you could go back to the early 90s, but he thought that was that the team that actually won the last playoff game in 91, that was a little bit of a surprise. He actually said this is more like the early 80s in his recollection when Billy Sims was playing and the Silverdome was crazy and there was a little bit of an expectation that was built. It didn't really go anywhere, but obviously. But that's what he likened to. And I wasn't living here in that area then, so I can't really speak to that. I assume you weren't either, unless you were, lying about growing up in California. I don't know.
Well, obviously, I hope that, him telling you that probably very loudly and obviously, and us promoting it on our podcast gets him a big fat bonus check at DetroitLions.com.
That would be good for him. He deserves it. He's put in a lot of decades.
Yeah. Because I don't know if Mike is just forgetting, but there was a hell of a lot of excitement when Ndamukong Suh and Calvin Johnson and Stafford were all on the team, and they won 11 games that year in 2011, 2014, and Jim Caldwell was the rookie head coach. There was a lot of excitement going into 2015, and what happened? Faceplant. 7-9. I wasn't around for the Billy Sims era, but I'm sorry, he's wrong. You had the team. The thing that the team does not have right now is these superstars. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson may become that, but he isn't what Suh was. The dominating all-pro guy right away. Rookie of the year. He's not what Suh was. Stafford and Calvin. Amon-Ra is not Calvin, and even Goff is not Stafford. So. I would quibble with Mike about that I don't know, the 80s. I mean, I'd have to go back and I don't know what year exactly he was talking about, but, I don't know, Gary Danielson? Was it Gary Danielson, the savior, or Eric Kipple? I don't know what he's talking about, but a lot of it hinges on the quarterback. And, as good as Goff has looked, at times last year and all that, he's not. As Jameson Williams could probably tell you, he's not Lamar Jackson. So I don't know about that.
Look, here's what's different. And I was around in 2011.
Dan Campbell's different. That's what.
And then 2014. No, what's different? Well, that's one, but that's not the main difference to me because Caldwell looked like a good coach at the time that you're referring to.
Boring.
Right. I mean, no, but he looked like a good coach. He'd been to a Super Bowl before he was here. So, I mean, he had the track record. But what's different, and I understand why he goes back to the 80s, although I remember what that felt like in the 90s, but that was also, they won a playoff game, right? So it's hard to compare it to that. And then they ended up having some tragedy around that team, and, they could never get the quarterback play where they wanted it. The early 80s, they didn't have a quarterback play. Even in the early 90s, it wasn't consistent enough, obviously. And then they got into Scott Mitchell and all that sort of thing. There was sort of some false hope. What's different now, even from 2014, is you're completely right about the star power. But this team seems to have more good players, maybe not great players, but more good players in lots of places. And what they really have, what none of these teams have had, is the offensive line. And they've got a chance to have they've never had an offensive line with this caliber of talent on it. And I mean, that's just a fact.
I'm going to tell Lomas Brown you said that, by the way.
Lomas Brown was by himself. You know, he was a really good player. But they got 4, 5. Well, we'll see what Vaitai does. I mean, he was hurt, but they got 4 really, really good offensive linemen. What's funny is that they, even last year, I don't think all 5 stars. I mean, they didn't play a snap together because Vaitai hurt himself, I think, before the season started. But it's the trenches. That's what feels different. That's why people are more excited about this time, and they also feel it's more sustainable.
They're excited because of maybe the defensive. No. How you're
again, Carlos. Again,
let's
you're not
let's spend
$150
to people on the Lions game to go watch the offensive line. Come on,
that's not the point. That you're not giving credit to people that watch football. They understand football and how football's won and where it's won, and they also see lots of young pieces in lots of different places. And then obviously people are buying into the front office and the coach. That's part of this too, for sure. But that's why people are hyped in a different kind of way, because they feel like it's different in the way they're built inside and out. To me, that's the difference from 2014.
The difference right now is Dan Campbell and a decent team that looks to be getting better in a really bad division. That's what the difference is right now. The Lions fans are desperate for this team to be opportunistic and to strike, and that Aaron Rodgers is finally ending the cycle of 30 uninterrupted years of first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback play from one team, right? So that's right. That's why, and they should be excited. I don't blame them. I don't blame them for saying, hey, this is the chance. Don't screw it up. Be opportunistic. And that's the kind of thing that's one of the reasons that the Jameson Williams stuff touches such a nerve. It's like, listen, hey, it's all going our way. It's going to happen. And then boom, he gets popped, missing 6 games. It's like the little speed bumps you don't need that are upsetting people. But absolutely, I understand. And the Hard Knocks thing and all the hype you love. I don't think you can write I dare you to write a column one day, Shawn, about the Lions without the words Dan Campbell or hype. And if you can do that, I'll buy you lunch or something at Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. But
I did. I wrote a column about Sam Laporta, a tight end. I wrote a column about Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back.
You used hype in both of them, I think.
And I did not mention. I don't know if I mentioned Campbell or not, but
probably.
And people just can't get enough of this right now. I'm telling you, it's different. I mean, look, you just discovered what a Lions fan was a year ago when you came over to my house and watched it with my son. So you don't have a lot of credibility when it comes to understanding what people are feeling out there. I mean, and I don't mean that as a slight, my brother. I really don't. But
I hope you're kidding that I don't know what Lions fans are. I've just never.
You don't. Not really.
Never watched a game with the Lions fans in their living room. But that's different from
it's
not understanding. I've known Lions fans for decades, my man.
Yeah,
decades.
but the fact that you were surprised watching my sons watch that.
No, I was
game.
surprised at how. I mean, part of it is I know who their dad is, so they're emotional and a little bit illogical.
No, they
things.
represent.
I don't blame them for that.
They're just average fans. They're just average Lions fans.
They're offspring of Shawn Windsor. No.
They're average Lions fans. They're not season ticket holders. They're not
above average Lions fans.
You know what I mean? No, they're not. Trust me. I used to do this for a living to some degree. I used to hang out in tailgates all the time and write stories about it. I've been doing that since long before I was a sports writer. Actually, I've been around these folks, and I've got people. I didn't grow up here, but I'm in a family with family that did, and lots of family that goes back generations. So I've just been around it ever since I moved to. Not long after I moved to Michigan back in the 80s. So, yeah. And my 2 sons are just regular Lions fans. There's nothing special about the way they care about this team. I guarantee you that.
I don't know, though, your boys don't have anything on their old man as far as how much hope they have. I don't think either one of them would pick 12 wins. 12 and
No,
5.
they
Shawn's
can't.
column, if you haven't seen it, go checkfreak.com for
It's
the
not the
most.
hope.
The other wellness check was
They can't wait for the season to begin.
I was
That's
worried
the
that you
thing.
had OD'd on Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid. I was wondering.
They
I was like,
cannot-
are you still alive? Do we need to?
They can't wait. They can't wait for the season to
airlift you
begin.
somewhere to some hospital? Because I was really worried, Shawn. I mean, 12 wins. Of course, you
No, that's,
ended the whole thing.
no-
I love it by saying, but I reserve the right to change my mind. at
Yeah,
any
because I want to see what happens in training camp, and that's what you got to do. My boys just can't wait for the season to begin, and that's where I
Did
mean,
they
my
agree? 12
goodness.
wins. What did they think?
I didn't talk to them about that. So we can talk about that column in a sec, but I just want you to understand the difference.
Fun
People
column, by the way. I
can't
loved it.
wait.
I loved it.
People can't wait for the season to begin. How much hope they have? They're Lions fans. They want to have some hope. They're also racing because this thing could fall apart very easily. It's the NFL. It happens all the time.
I don't go off on a big tangent, but just quickly, who has more hope right now? Lions fans or Michigan football fans? Who's drinking from the spigot of hope, from the fire hose?
Once again, there's some nuance involved here.
No. Don't complicate it with your egghead stuff. Just tell me who has more hope right now.
It's not the same. Michigan won a title. It's not anywhere near the same because the fan bases are very different. Michigan won a title not that long ago, relatively speaking, right? In the 90s. I know it was a generation ago, but still not that long ago. And they've been really good the last couple of years. So obviously they want that title. They've also beaten Ohio State a couple of times. They know they're close. So I think they believe they're going to have a chance to win the whole thing for sure. But it's not tied up into this decades long romanticism and pain and all that other stuff that the Lions fans. So I don't feel there's very little buzz around Ann Arbor right now. And there probably will be as the season gets closer. But there's an expectation they're going to be really good. That's different because they have been really good. So
right.
Is it hope? I feel like it's starting to switch over to expectation, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like they used to be.
Yeah. So they're the expectation aside. So then say the word expectation, and which fan base has more or higher expectation?
Michigan has a lot more expectation.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. The Lions fans they're wounded, man. I mean, they're excited. They can't wait to see this is going to happen, but they're not going to. I mean,
they're looking for salvation.
I was talking to Omari Sankofa, who our
the second, by the way, Omari Sankofa, the second. Say the whole thing.
Actually, I saw him at your softball game, but I also was talking to him at Troy Weaver's press conference earlier this week, pre-draft press conference. Excuse me. And he grew up in the city and moved away to Memphis for a while and covered the Grizzlies down there. And he said when he moved back, he had told himself, I can't, my heart can't take this anymore. I've got to divorce myself. I got to quit the Lions. And then they pulled him back in. And
that's what every Lions says. Every Lions fan says, oh, I can't do this anymore, right?
And he said they pulled him back in, and he said he's young, right? But he said he's never looked forward to a season like this, not in his whole life. Now, again, I don't know how old Omari is. He's late 20s probably. But so, that's a little bit relative, but he can't wait. and he's a professional, right? But he's also he doesn't have to cover the Lions, so he can be his fan. He can let the fandom out.
I love Omari. It's like, it's been a lifetime of losing for me, a whole 14 years. I can't take it anymore. And when you got great grandfathers, I can't remember them winning since the black and white days.
It's what you know. I mean, he's never seen a playoff win, right? So it's all relative. But so if you want to talk about the column, let me set it up real quickly. I called up our editor, actually, Kirk, and I said, we do all these mock drafts. Well, let's have some mock predictions. I know it's June. It's even ridiculous to think about, but it's just, there's so much interest in it right now. Let's have a little fun with it. And since it's before training camp, I can say, hey, I'm going to have a little fun and say, I might change this. I mean, obviously, Jared Goff gets hurt. I'm knocking on wood for you fans out there. That would change everything. But so, we need to keep that in mind. But anyway, I said, Kirk, our editor, I said, have you actually looked at the schedule? I mean, I looked at it when it came out, but have you actually looked and gone game by game? I said, if they're who they think they can be, and they're anything like they were the last 10 games of last season, they're going to have a chance to have a really, really good start, even with a loss on opening night. And can you imagine what that would look like if it does happen? So that's kind of how the column came about. So let's just have a little bit of fun with this. And I predicted 12 wins for now, 12-5, which is only 3 more than a year ago. So if you think about it that way, that's not really a radical leap. That's just 3 games. And what
That's
I didn't
a lot.
write
3 games is a lot.
Well, but it's not 6
Plus,
or 7.
Tell them how you have them starting. What's the start for that team?
I have them losing to the Chiefs off the bat in Kansas City. Here's the other thing that I didn't write.
And then?
I did wait. What I didn't write in the column, which I thought about, was saying, okay, if I were a different sort of sports writer, maybe a perhaps more uninformed sports writer, who liked himself a little bit, at least on the surface, I would have mentioned that I predicted 9-8 a year ago, at least to give myself a little credibility here. But I decided I didn't want to do that because then it just makes it a little bit more about me than I wanted it to be. But yeah, so it's going from 9 to 12. I don't. If you look at the schedule, that's one of the reasons people are predicting them, Carlos, to win the NFC North, is because it's a weak division and the schedule sets. It's all the NFC South and the NFC North. It sets up pretty well for them.
And I think you have them starting 5-1, 6-1.
I can't remember. It's definitely 5-1.
After the Chiefs, and I think you predict a narrow loss, fourth quarter comeback that just falls short. We ran out of time, said Dan Campbell. I think you have them like on a 6-1 start. So, that's tough, man. That's a high bar. I think a lot of this is hinging on, making sure or assuming that the Bears and the Packers are not going to be good. I think you have them splitting with the Bears.
Chicago. I do because I think
the Packers. I think, right?
Yes,
splitting with the Vikings, or do you have them sweeping the Vikings?
Splitting with the Vikings.
End of the season, yeah. And winning at Dallas. It's easy to win at Dallas.
No, it's not. But they were right there last year, and I was at that game, and they were right there last year. I'm trying to remember what. That'll be tough. I just feel like they're going to have a couple of surprise wins. One is there, and the other one's at Baltimore. But everything else sort of tracks pretty well, right? They'll be favored in a lot of those games.
Do you think Jameis might actually run out there on accident with Baltimore's offense to catch a pass from Lamar? Or
I don't know.
Will they get confused? Go to the wrong locker room?
You think so? You can keep making a big deal of that. You can keep. We don't need to.
I'll
keep
never let it go,
that.
Shawn.
What's that?
I'll never let it go.
No, I wish you would, because we work for the Free Press, and we want to gain subscribers, not lose them. So we can move on from that.
Oh,
if that's okay with you. Yeah.
By the way, I have to say, as any honest sports writer will tell you, everybody loves drama. Everybody loves people who make our jobs more interesting, because there's so much vanilla, in the media and vanilla among the sports, the players and the coaches and all that we always appreciate a little bit of drama, even when it's a little uncomfortable. People enjoy a little break. And that, by the way, just speaking about the hype and all that stuff, this feels to me, the Dan Campbell era feels to me, I started covering the Lions in 2006. And this feels to me the way people used to talk about Wayne Fontes. Oh, the Wayne Fontes days. They were this it was like talking about, JFK and Camelot. It was, Wayne would come down and we'd have lunch for his press conference and he'd be honest and, all this stuff. And this was obviously during the Marinelli era. Schwartz was a little bit more interesting. Call was, a piece of vanilla cake with vanilla frosting. So it was, I just, and I've covered other sports, and I've worked in LA and stuff. And we had, Barry Melrose for a while for the Kings. And so Tommy Lasorda, I'd never really covered Tommy, but I always felt like, you just missed the greatest party. You just missed it by a day. So I'm glad to live for the Dan Campbell era. It's a very fun time. and even the Jared Goff stuff with he's a little chippy sometimes and a little short with us, and he's fun to cover in a different way. I hope it keeps going. I hope it keeps going, Shawn. I hope you can go out there and write more of your hype man columns. It'll be great. You and Flavor Flav, man.
We'll see if they don't win, then that's all going to go away, right?
So wouldn't that you know what? And that's part of it too. If they don't win, if they face plant, the bar's high. That's going to be really interesting. How do they deal with it?
It will for a while, but if they really start losing, then as you know,
it'll be really interesting.
People, not really.
This is either going to be a glorious jump on the bandwagon or a train wreck. I doubt it's going to be somewhere in the middle. Maybe it will. Well,
no. If injuries are the reason that it starts to fall apart, which obviously can happen, then that's not a train wreck at all. That's just sad for these people that were so excited, right? I mean, that happens every year in sports. All team sports.
I don't think people have that much nuance. They don't like, if Rydell misses 4 games or Decker's out for half this. People don't think of it that way. It's just like, well, they're just
sure they
losing
do. I remember. Sure they do. I remember when. So you were talking about Michigan earlier. I'm trying to remember the year after 2006, or maybe no. Maybe it was 2006. I think it was Lloyd Carr's last year. It was one of those last couple of years. He lost. Who was the lineman that they had that was a top 10 pick? Maybe even a top 5 pick. He was a tackle, and his name escapes me.
Oh, but Jake
Long. And they lost him the year before. They went 11-0 or 12-0 to get that Ohio State game.
Right.
And Michigan, I can remember here because I live in Ann Arbor and the family's full of Michigan fans, my extended family in particular. And I can remember them talking about that all season. Jake Long. So people that understand football and people that watch football generally understand it, and they know that. And you hopefully, humbly, will find a way to figure that out. That people know what they're looking at to a decent degree. Not like coaches, obviously, but that's just one example.
Yeah, and Jake Long was a number 1 pick. I mean, he was amazing.
No, but his absence completely changed that offense, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, people understood that. And college elite players on college teams was way more significant than in the NFL. I mean, other than losing your quarterback, right? I mean, there's your right tackle, your tackle, whatever. You can have really good tackles and stuff, but there shouldn't be as much of a drop off losing one guy, on the line.
Well, I mean, but
maybe he lost to Calvin Johnson or something. But
no, there are a few other spots like the Chiefs of Kansas City Chiefs, had lost Chris Jones, for example, last year, one of the league leaders in sacks, who was very destructive in that playoff run and made a huge difference in the Bengals game in particular. If they didn't have him, I don't know that they win, right? And I would bet you those Kansas City fans understand that. I mean, so somebody like that
they still win. I don't know if they win the Super Bowl, but they still win a man.
No, yeah, they wouldn't have a losing season, no, for sure. But football fans understand that somebody who's that much of a difference maker, whatever side of the ball. And you're right, there are not that many on. I mean, you could use your linebacker, sometimes your safety. I mean, it just depends. It just depends on the player, the team, what they do for the team, all that. Obviously, you start with the quarterback for sure.
Yeah,
no question. But I guess I don't know how we got sidetracked in this. I guess if the Lions go down with injuries, people will give them around here anyway. People will give them a break. But if you're talking about if they're relatively healthy and they go 4-13 or whatever, then that would be a train wreck, or even 7-10, right?
Yeah, they have to have, at the very least, I think they have to have a winning record. Now, if Jordan Love comes out of the blue or Justin Fields suddenly plays at MVP level or something, something like that happens, it's crazy, and some team just bounds past them, but they still have a good season and having a winning record and maybe get a wild card or just miss out because the stupid Seahawks miss a field goal again or whatever. That changes it for sure. People would be bitter about what happened. This was our year. But they just can't face plant. They can't have a losing record. That's the one thing.
Unless they lose Goff and several other players.
Right. I mean, you're right. Barring anything, extraordinary happening, they can't have a losing record.
I'm with you. So you're going to pick at least 9 wins, right? That's a winning record. I mean, I would bet you'll probably pick 10, maybe. Would that be my guess?
You know what? I have to say this about our boss, Kirkland Crawford, he's such a good person because, Shawn wrote this column and he was telling Kirk, wouldn't it be really interesting? We do these mock drafts. Well, Shawn, every year when the schedule comes out in May, everybody writes their season prediction. So you're about a month late on the deadline and he didn't give you any stick for that. So I'm really, Kirk is just a good person for not telling you that you should have written this a month ago when everybody else did.
No, because Dave Burkett went through game by game, if I'm not mistaken, and did a cursory thing, and people do. But I would argue that the hype and the buzz is even more now because we just got to look at the rookies, and we had all. I've never seen. When was the last time you saw
rookies doing calisthenics and jumping jacks?
That's all I heard of the whole time. I was at rookie camp twice, I want to say, and I was at the mini camp 3 times at least. And all I heard, especially from some of the long timers out there, not that many of them left, but was where did all these people come from? Even the coaches were joking about why is this room so full with reporters?
Yeah. It was the first day, and then the next day nobody showed up. It was half of that.
No, I was there a couple other times, and it was
there was
really,
also
really
nothing
crowded.
else going on the sports calendar. The Tigers were out of town.
Yeah, but that's never made a difference before.
Oh, sure,
It's funny. Our colleague Jeff Seidel was talking about this. I can't believe the way we're covering this, but it's just because that's where the news is. He
was there because the Tigers were out of town.
And that's where the interest in the news is. And so I would argue that my predictions column actually hit at the perfect time. We're just coming off the camps, and people are just, counting down the days. My goodness, man, training camp's going to be here in
I think you said summer's over, basically, right? Summer's over. I did.
Well, that was
summer hasn't even technically begun, but it's
I was
over.
Obviously joking.
Good. Yeah.
But it's not cool that it's going to be here in a month.
My
2 days.
If you haven't read it, I'm going to give you a spoiler. If you people out there haven't read it, but my favorite line, it was the first time they play the Bears and you have them winning, like the Lions own the Bears, and then in the rematch, the Bears win, and Soldier Field's like the Lions don't own the Bears.
Well, they're going to be due for a couple of those games, right? I mean,
it's tough to win at Soldier Field. I don't care.
They almost lost last year.
Yeah, Shawn Windsor could be the quarterback, and it's just weird. Soldier Field's tough.
Yeah, they should be a little bit better, and Fields is promising. So, all right, let's take a break, man. We're getting a little long here. Let's take a break, and we'll come back. And what are we talking about? More Lions, or we can talk about some Wings?
Red Wings beat writer extraordinaire Shawn Windsor.
Yeah, we can talk about the Red Wings. All right, we'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlson Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlson Shawn. Carls, we're going to talk about hockey.
It sounds like a question, like you're not sure about.
No. You honestly want to talk about
hockey? Like, is it your kind of voice went up a little bit? Like, are you not?
Well, I mean, sure? there's one team that matters.
Ice hockey. Now. You're talking about ice hockey or field hockey or ice hockey? Because you can.
No, we can talk about ice hockey. The NHL has a draft next week too. The Wings have the 9th pick. They also have, I want to say, the 17th pick, and then 3 straight early second round picks, which Steve Yzerman in his press conference the other day said he's never had before. The Wings, I don't think, moved up. They've sort of slotted right where they were. And at this point, Carl's Wings fans don't expect any luck at all in the lottery, at least not in the recent era, especially under the Yzerman era.
Yeah, you could, if you're waiting for luck to save you in the draft, you're waiting for a lot. It's not, in hockey, as you know, Shawn, as a astute student of the game, it's just not one player, and there's shifts, and there's only so much ice time to go around. And, the one hockey player in the NHL is Connor McDavid, and you, of course, worked him into your column. And you noted how even with Connor McDavid, the Panthers and the Golden Knights did not have Connor McDavid. Even though Jack Eichel was he the number 2 pick or something for Buffalo years ago, He's not the player he was then, but he's still damn good. He's not the best. And I've seen Connor McDavid play a lot, and I've played, Leon Draisaitl and some great players. One or two great players isn't enough. You've got to build a team. You've got to have a defense. You've got to have the right system. You got to have, health also part of it in hockey a lot. You got to be playing well at the right time of the year. So all that factors in, even having the number one pick. When the Kings traded for Wayne Gretzky, one of the biggest trades in the history of organized sports, it was, here comes the Stanley Cup. He's going to bring the cup, just won the Stanley Cup. That's it. The winning will go uninterrupted. And the Kings added player after player, and they got to one Stanley Cup final and lost. And that was it. So it's not just about one or two great players, and as we know from covering the team, during its heyday and its 25-year Stanley Cup, playoff run, they weren't always, the Wings didn't have the best player in the league. I don't know if they ever had the best player in the league all that time. So it was having three strong lines and a solid defense and a good enough goalie, and the 1 year with Dominik Hasek, they probably had one of the best goalies in the league, but Chris Osgood, Mike Vernon, very good goalies, excellent at times. But it's a collection. It's how that team works together. And the coaching helps too, for sure. So I think Yzerman knows that. He knows it's not just, if I don't get the top pick, then forget it. He's done a good job of swinging trades and working contracts. And I think you mentioned, he wants a nucleus, which every team wants, a good nucleus of players. And you need to add a good mix of veterans, but a young nucleus growing together. Now the clock's ticking on Dylan Larkin. He's what, 20? He's going to be 27.
He's going to be 27 in a few weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got about 3 years of prime time play if he doesn't get hurt. Even if he does get hurt, whatever. These are like the last 3 years of his probably career where he's going to be in prime playing condition. So they have to start making some progress or showing some progress, and they did this year. But consistently not having these blowout losses, not getting, skunked here and there when it matters. But did you, and I didn't watch Yzerman's, I wasn't in town for it, but what was his mood like? I mean, I think he was asked about the playoffs, if he feels any more urgency, but he didn't seem to, did he?
No, not at all. He was asked if he felt pressure, and he said, no, not really.
I'm Steve Flippin' Yzerman. You think I feel pressure?
Right. And the last thing he's going to do is, and he keeps saying this, he's told us this, you've heard him several times, he's not going to make a move that in his mind interrupts this longer plan, the slow roll that he's got.
Very slow
in
roll.
His head, right? He's not going to do it, and the owner's not going to force him to do it. And as long as that happens, I don't think, and I guess then why should he do it, right? He wants to keep. Here's the other thing I'm interested in with hockey, and you wrote about this a little bit a couple of months ago, and obviously the Panthers got in as an 8 seed last year. They won the President's Trophy and lost to Tampa in the second round, but this year they upset the team that won the President's Trophy and set a record in the Boston Bruins. So there's this sense you get in hockey and anything can happen, and that's true because it's played out enough over the last 25, 30 years that we know that that's true. But the bigger question to me is, do you really, of course you don't have to have Connor McDavid, and the Wings never had the Mario Lemieux. When they first started winning their first titles, wasn't Lemieux the best player in the league at that point, more or less?
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Or Jaromir Jagr or whatever. I don't even know that they had anybody quite like that. But do you even need a top 10 player? I mean, I was kind of going through, and it's all subjective how you rank players, where you rank players, but there are some formulas that can, that you can mostly agree on who's where. The Golden Knights didn't have anybody in the top 25, I want to say. The Panthers have a couple of guys, but they're not superstars. You could argue maybe they're star players relative to hockey. But it seems to me, Carlos, that in hockey you can win with a lot of really good players. You can win a Stanley Cup with a lot of really, really good players, and not necessarily a great, great transcendent player. In the NBA, that's much harder to do.
That's absolutely
true.
In fact,
the Pistons are the last team that's done it.
NBA is so much different. It's apples and oranges, but hockey, I mean, I'll be honest, when I watched the Kings win their 2 Stanley Cups, so 2 and 3 years, I think it was 12 and 14. And they were very good even around that time, but when they won, they didn't have an amazing star player. They had a lot of tough, gritty players, very talented players too. Anze Kopitar, guys like that. Jonathan Quick, probably the best goalie at the time. But they had Daryl Sutter. That helps. But they had Daryl Sutter. They had a Hall of Fame coach, a really good coach who knew how to use the players he had, and they played a tough, pounding style. And toward the end of that era, when the players started to get older, and Dustin Brown was getting older and more injured, and Jeff Carter was still a good player, but his style was a tougher style. When teams countered that with speed, and aggressiveness and a strong forecheck, they countered that. They learned how to neutralize that. So systems work for a while, and they can work very well. But yeah, you don't always have to have a star. You have to know what team you have. How are you gonna build it? What kind of team? And that's a question for Yzerman is, what kind of team are you gonna build? Is it gonna be more skill based? Is it gonna be more grit? Is it gonna be more defense oriented? Is it what do you want? Who do you want to be?
That's a really good question. It's funny because I think back to a press conference. I'm trying to remember who the Wings played. Oh shoot, it escapes my memory. But they won, and it was sort of toward the end of their 9 of 10 or 11 of 12, whatever it was. They won 10 of 12, 8 of 9, and they won that night. Excuse me. And they were talking about afterwards about the thin margin for error that they had.
Right.
That they don't have very many guys, if anybody, that's say really, really good with their hands around the net. They can just go make a play. And, like in football, you throw the ball out there. Can your guy just go get it? And right. So that's the question. So how much more do they need of that? And do they have anybody on the roster that could be that? I know Helena has thrown out this young Swede center, Leo Carlson, who's apparently, I haven't seen him play. I don't know if you've seen him play. No. You're probably not an NHL scout, but he's a Swede, I think. But apparently he's got great hands, right? Not just great vision as a center and his presence and all that, but he can score and make plays. And he'd be a top 3 pick. And is there any way for Yzerman to go get him? And does he even feel the inclination to go get him? Because, they got a promising young center on their team who might make the team this year, and Marco Kasper. But maybe he doesn't quite have as much of that zip or that, that playmaking ability, even though he's really good. So can you win with a team of, Sider has a chance to be great, but on defense, but can you win with a team of Larkins and Kaspers and a bunch of really good guys like that? Or do you at some point have to have McKinnon?
I think you have to have a couple players, 2 or 3 players on your team who scare the other team, and I'm talking like a Drew Doughty for the Kings, or a Darnell Nurse for the Oilers, or, forget McDavid, but just guys who Marchessault, for the Golden Knights, who I think you pointed out wasn't even drafted.
No, he wasn't. And I was making that point that you don't have to win the lottery to get guys like that, right?
Right. And Yzerman's talked about this, and he's talked about very honestly that, listen, the problem with draft picks, and which is why I don't think he tends to move around too much or trade up to get draft picks, because it's a gamble. He said, you don't know with draft picks, you don't know with 18-year-old guys what's going to happen. They got to go through their system and develop. You just don't know. He was a player himself. He saw it with guys of his age, and as he was coming up as a veteran and moving into the front office, they're prospects, just like baseball. You draft them, and we'll see in 3 years how it turns out. But you can use your picks, you can use your draft picks, or you can use your prospects to trade for players. They don't have to be stars necessarily, but players who fit your team, and stock your roster that way if the prospects don't work out. And I think that's what he's thinking, is these are commodities. Whether I draft this guy or that guy, or I trade back and get a higher draft pick and trade that for a commodity, a veteran player on a team, until they see somebody they really love or really like higher up in the draft. I think he's smart that way to understand that he doesn't just have to get the number one draft. I mean, you can go through the NHL and look at all the number one draft picks in the last 10 years, and you probably have done that. And I don't know how many of those guys have won the Stanley Cup or have helped their teams make deep runs.
Not many. Yeah, hockey's just different that way. The other thing about Yzerman is interesting. His own, not only his experience in Tampa, although they've had some real studs there, but obviously to propel that run. But even in his playing days, when they were winning cups, I would argue. I mean, I'm sure he would say the same thing, that he wasn't the whiz guy, huge, goal scorer when they were winning, right? That he had been when he was younger. Right. I mean, he was electrifying when he was younger. He was still in Gretzky's and Lemieux's shadow, but he was electrifying in his own right. But he was not quite that player,
right?
By the time they started winning cups, right?
Right.
And they had Fedorov, who had a lot of speed and skill and so forth. But I was just trying to. That team was really, really talented and really good.
Fedorov was the guy who scared you.
He was, but they also won when they started getting guys like Shanahan,
right?
Who wasn't up and down the ice, but just a big guy knew how to put the puck in the net, right? So that's
right.
And I was thinking about this with Yzerman the other day. You were talking about the moves and his patience. He did take a bit of a swing with a guy who could put that fear in you, but it just didn't work out with Vrana, right? Bertuzzi had a little bit of that. Vrana had even more of that sort of skill, and it just didn't work.
Right. Jonathan Berggren is the next guy they think that might have something like that, and he's being watched closely in the minors. Veleno is someone else, that they hope to get more out. I mean, there's different guys who have skill and that they're hopeful for, toward that can make a difference. Casper's another one. Yeah, they keep
could be a really good second line. Really good second line.
Is he going to get a look? Is he going to come up? Is he going to make the team out of it? That'll be the story. One of the big storylines out of camp for them is Marco Casper going to make the team? And, when is he ready? Simon Edvinsson is another one. He's supposed to be, possibly pairing with Seider, on the blue line. So they feel like there's all these, like you have this arsenal of some young talent in the pipeline that's close to making the team. Are they going to make the team? Are they going to make a difference when they're on the team? That's the question. Lucas Raymond. I mean, he's kind of a forgotten guy. I mean, he was in the running for Rookie of the Year, last year when Seider won it, and this year, didn't really show as much. I think he might have been hurt for a little bit, but
maybe the second year is like that sometimes, isn't it? We see that in lots of sports. Sometimes somebody comes up, and then that second year they dip a little, and then the third year is where they really start to get it. We'll see.
Yeah, it could be that way with Raymond. But yeah, there's that's the one thing that I don't get excited about with the NHL draft or the major MLB, amateur draft is you draft them and okay, we'll see in 2 or 3 years.
Oh, hard to project them.
It is.
I mean, unless you get somebody, you mentioned McDavid earlier or whatever, Eichel. I mean, I don't know the fellow this year that the Blackhawks are going to take, Bedard.
Right, Connor Bedard, right. And that's the thing that I wonder with the Red Wings how much this has changed, because baseball and hockey are so different. You have their amateur scouting all over the globe for hockey. All kinds of Europe and all this stuff. Baseball, it's all here pretty much.
Well, this year, Central and South America.
True, but most of it is here. And you do, when they invite, like during spring training, this year they invited probably more prospects to camp than ever before. I mean, the beat writers were talking about, there's so many people here, so many players. And, Scott Harris is the first time, his first year as the team president, GM, de facto GM, and maybe he just wanted to have as much of a look at these guys in person as he could. But there were tons of guys on the backfields, and who's this guy? And I don't know if that's going to stay the same. But as Yzerman, are they kind of combing the earth the same way, or trying to get as many? Yzerman trying to have as many eyeballs on those prospects as he can. I mean, he's now in he's going in his 4th draft. So, probably doesn't feel quite the same way that Scott Harris is. But let me give you one little thing about Yzerman, and I think that is interesting is if you want a number that's important to the Red Wings and to Yzerman and how you consider him, it's if you look at their attendance this year, and I don't know exactly where it ranked. You could probably look that up pretty easily, but I was just looking at some of the attendance numbers for the end of the year when they were out of the playoffs at home, playing Buffalo. They had 19,000, Pittsburgh 19,000, Dallas almost 18,000, Carolina 19, Pittsburgh 9. I mean, one of the reasons Yzerman doesn't feel the heat is because they draw well. When you're drawing well and you're selling, that means you're filling the parking lots, you're selling souvenirs, you're selling food. That's really the business of sports. It's not really winning. Chumps like you and me talk about winning a lot in championships. What the real business is I'm sure in an honest moment, Chris Illich would probably tell you, any owner would probably tell you, it's about making money. Yes, the most assured way to make money is to win, to create that, interest.
Or to have the hope of winning.
Or
hope
have the hope.
Too.
But Shawn Windsor takes care of the hope and hype for you. So
you gotta have the hope of winning.
Yeah.
I mean, because
but it has changed. I mean, the Red Wings have turned that corner, I think, in the last year of they've been more competitive,
people can feel that.
More fun to watch. And
absolutely.
It's like the Lions, people and the Tigers, people want them, and the Pistons. They want them to win. They want to return to the glory days that weren't, for the Lions a long time ago, but for the other teams not so long ago when they were playing in World Series and championships or winning them. So you see the kernel of that, and you want to encourage it. And so maybe Yzerman, plus he's Saint Yzerman, so he can do no wrong. But he doesn't shouldn't pressure for a while.
He's got a lot of for sure. He's got a lot of leeway. There's no question. What you're talking about, that's almost a different podcast or a series of podcasts. Just the Pistons were the worst team by record and probably by any other measure in the league this past year, and they were still top 10 in attendance. It's crazy what a sports town this is.
Yeah,
now
it is.
The numbers don't always show, but that's people buying tickets, right? You might say, oh wow, 19,000. Was there really 19,000 this night? There might have been 15, but 19 bought tickets, right? And that's what matters. Now you lose some concession money. People are no showing with the tickets they purchased, but yeah, I remember being blown away but not really, that the Pistons were in top 10 attendance with that team.
Yeah.
And Lord knows the Lions, right? They sell out the Ford Field until, even with a 2 or 3 win team, they're still mostly filling it up into December.
Oh yeah.
So it's we're lucky to be able to work and have these jobs in a town where people really, really, really care about their teams.
By the way, Red Wings regular season 4th in the NHL, average of 18,819, 94.1% capacity.
No, it's true. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole necessarily on this podcast, but whenever you see news of shrinking companies that are laying off or cutting back, especially sports companies, we saw this recently, unfortunately, with the Athletic. When you look at the markets where it happens, it's generally in markets where they're either newer cities or the teams are newer or they just have never had that connection.
Right.
And it's just not, the interest just isn't there. You've got to have the interest. Especially when you go through a drought like we have been largely outside of our college teams, right? We've been in a pretty serious professional drought here, and it hasn't really affected business much.
That's what we have to thank, Shawn, people like you, Shawn, who are bringing the entire hope of a city forward with you, dragging it through the morass and the malaise of the 500 records and the non-playoff appearances and giving everybody in Detroit hope. So everybody should applaud you for that.
Well, there's nothing like a young team that looks like it might be promising. I don't know if that's more fun for fans than winning a title. Probably not, obviously, but it's surely the second best thing, right? Watching a young group start to figure it out. You're a fan. You've got your teams. There's not much.
I'll take an old team that didn't figure it out but still won. I don't care. I'm not.
No. Winning a title is the top, but watching a young group develop, learn how to win over the course of several years wasn't
that the difference of the bad boys who all came together, came through the system, and they were Daddy Rich and all that stuff, and the work, the going to work. team that was more or less put together from cast-offs who weren't really young. They came together, but they were cast-off older veterans.
The starting five with the going to work crowd, only one was drafted, Tayshaun Prince, and then probably even just think about their rotation. Well, maybe they drafted Mamedo Kur, but Lindsey Hunter, I guess they drafted him. Anyway, 4 out of the 5 starters were trades or free agents. And the bad boys, all those iconic guys, Isaiah, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, John Sally, Bill Laimbeer, I guess, came in a trade. But there are 4 guys right there. They were all drafted. Mm-hmm. And that came, for sure. So they were with them a lot longer, right? And they were with them when they were really young. By
the way, I'm glad in your column about Yzerman and the Red Wings that you made a slight comparison to Yzerman and Dumars as GMs, former star players. But there is no comparison between those 2 players among the fan base because Yzerman can do no wrong. I mean, it is, I think fans like genuflect when they see him on the street. Like he can do I don't even know. I don't even know. I can't even. Can you even conceive of a time that Chris Ilitch would fire Steve Yzerman? Like I can't even. If they didn't make the playoffs for 10 years, I don't know if that would happen. I just can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point
close
out there.
To Yzerman in 2033.
It's funny because Yzerman was arguably probably better hockey player than Dumars was a basketball player, but Dumars won a title here. Yzerman built a title team in Tampa, but. It's different for sure. But I was just trying to make the point that Dumars, one of the most beloved Pistons who's ever played, and came back as a GM and won a title, got to another finals. People were still done with him.
Yeah.
After not that long, right? It wasn't 6 years maybe. And that was with a lot of those years getting to the conference finals.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a rough business.
Well, it might be different if Yzerman won a title and then had a drought, and people didn't like the direction that the team was going. Like with Doom, that's what happened.
No,
with Dumars,
for sure, that's what happened with Dumars.
So that would be the key: is if he got to the top and then you could see the decline. It's like, well, you've served your purpose. You brought us a title. Now, where are the rest of the rings? And he can't get there again.
No question. And you know what else happens, Carlos? In that people start to think, well, they don't understand the game anymore. How often do we see that in sports? Like it's passed them by. That's a real common thing, even when it's clearly not true.
I think the one thing, and the thing with Yzerman, and it happens in hockey a lot more than NBA, I think, and it is the soft landing, as guys get booted upstairs and they get some executive, whatever advisor position, and a little like the Dwayne Casey thing, but specifically with Yzerman, he would never be outright fired. He would just be pushed aside.
He wouldn't. All right. Wow. Yeah, we went long again. Sorry, man. Let's take one more quick break, come back, wrap the show up, and get you out of here. Sound good?
Perfect.
And more importantly, get our producer, Robin Chan, out of here. Yeah, he's scrambling today, like we all are. All right, we'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, it's time to wrap the show up. You know what I mean?
It's that time, Shawn. It's my favorite thing, which turns into your favorite thing usually. So let me lead it off. And you were actually there for half of my favorite thing last week when the Free Press co-ed softball team finished up the season in our one playoff game. We narrowly lost to a slightly better team, 22-2. So it was tough. But the nice thing about the game was you showed up. Omari Sankofa, the second, showed up. And we had some supporters there throughout the season, some family, some friends. But afterward, we went out to a bar in Corktown, and a lot of the team showed up, and we got together. And it was one of those things where I remember looking around. We grabbed a couple of tables. Even the bartender came over and took our order for food and drink. I was one of the first to get there. It was like 3 or 4 of us. And then everybody showed up, and it must have been, 15 people who showed up, somewhere around there, 10 to 15. And he said, well, now that there's like 80 of you here, I got to start taking names and starting the tab and everything. So it was funny, but it was really nice. The whole point of doing this is to build some camaraderie, some togetherness now in our more the most disconnected we've ever been in our work lives, working remotely, which has a lot of benefits, um, we become less connected with each other. And in sports, to tell the listener out there, the thing in sports that's always happened is the sports writers don't work in the office. We always are out going to games and press conferences and practice and all that. So, if you're Shawn Windsor, you're traveling, high on the hog on the company's dime, going to all these great places around the world. If you're me, you're just working from home. But yeah, it's nice to see people, and we've seen people from across the newsroom and younger people, older people. Sean's BFF, Mike Ulrich, was our Justin Verlander in the circle this year. Unfortunately, he was out of town; he couldn't make it. But it was just great, Shawn, and it was. I wish you'd come out, but it was really good to see everybody, spend some time with them, chatting. Everybody, you could just see the friendship and the kinship kind of building there. And it's been like our third season together. Our former assistant editor, Tyler Davis, started the team. So it's been a really nice experience and a memory. And we're gonna start again. We're gonna have our summer season, but that was my favorite thing last week. And I'll dearly miss the team. It'll never be the same team. Won't be together the next season, but a lot of it will. And I'm looking forward to more fun times like that with the team.
Well, I enjoyed coming out. Was sorry to see that the game wasn't a little bit more competitive. I think you were missing some folks, and it just wasn't a completely fair fight. But there was a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and that was nice to see. You got a little worked up at one point, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So I was wondering if that was just you. Are you normally like that, or
no?
Is it just some things that have happened, right? Sometimes you get to a place in your life, you've had some things happen, right? That they can do that.
Things I've seen.
They can bring out, well, you've had some loss in your life too. And I remember how I saw you at the game at one point. I can remember getting like that a couple times myself after I had not a couple, but I had a loss exactly like yours. I was a lot younger, but it's funny, the way I was watching you, it reminded me of that. And in any case, I was happy to see you today. I don't think I've seen you since or talked to you since. I think we texted once on Father's Day. But I was happy to see that you're yourself again today. So that's my favorite thing, to be honest.
I thank you. And by the way, I give the team a lot of credit because I was upset that they were kind of running the score up on us. And we were, as you said, we were without our full squad, and it's a co-ed league. And our league is, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but a lot of these teams, they're just teams that have been put together by friends. And if anybody's ever played adult league sports, you eventually become a team of ringers. And I've been on those teams before. Like, this person's better, let's invite them. And pretty soon the team that started is not the team that's playing anymore. It's, we got a better player. We're a team of people at work, whoever can show up from work. And we strongly encourage participation from anybody who wants. In fact, we had a photo intern who just showed up that day, and she got to play. And she did her best, and it was, and I kind of just sort of let the other team know, maybe you don't need to be swinging for the fences on every single pitch. And to their credit, they really held back. They weren't rounding third and coming in hard at home plate. They deserve credit too for understanding. So sometimes, teams get excited. It's fun to score. It's fun to win. And then people don't realize, they just get up there and, hey, I'm going to swing. I'm going to get, here's my chance to get a home run. I haven't hit a home run this year. It's like, the score's 11-1, buddy. You're going to win the game. Just, you can take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit.
It's hard to ask people. I get the round the bases and the way maybe, but it's hard to ask people not to swing, right? It's just that's difficult.
But if you're good enough, and I'm not to toot my own horn, but I'm one of the better hitters on our team. I've played baseball in high school. I know how to hit the ball hit a line drive and not have to like crank it up and try to put it over the fence. And these players are all capable enough to not have to do that. So, and they did tone it down. And it was fine. That was the only time. And it was, but I noticed that because I missed a few games this year because my father's illness and his passing away and stuff. And I missed a few games and we did lose lopsided games. And I wondered about that. Like, did they keep pouring it on? Because that's poor sportsmanship to do that. I would tell our own team if we were up by a lot, hey guys, let's calm down, You've coached, what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah. And I mean, but in other sports, you can, like in basketball, when you're up big, you just pull your better players,
Exactly.
right? You pull your starters. But in an adult rec league, you're getting up there and you're in the batter's box. I mean, it's your swing is your swing. And
no, it's not. You can tone it down. You don't have to.
I mean, you can try to reduce the bat speed a little bit, but then you're just.
Nobody's keeping stats either. There's no OPS in this league.
Yeah, you can try to do that some, but then I just feel like that's weirdly disrespectful. And I wouldn't want anybody I would be more upset watching somebody who's a really good hitter barely get the bat off their shoulder, to be honest, because that feels a little more patronizing. Yeah. But that's
so you'd be happy. You tell your team's up 18-1 and you say, yeah, go ahead, swing away, buddy.
No, I mean, it's just part of it. And the game will eventually be over. And sometimes you're just going to take your lumps. I didn't feel like they were trying to rub it in or anything like that. I mean, if they were talking crap after they hit, running up to first base, then yes.
I'd rather have them talk crap and not swing for the fences than swinging for the fences.
I don't want anybody not trying. I don't. I want, if they're being poor sports or whatever, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, it's nice to see that you're doing okay. And I know you had a nice break, I would hope, and you're ready to get back at it.
Well, what's your favorite thing?
That was my favorite thing, seeing that you're okay. Yeah, you were a little out of sorts.
Classic Shawn.
You were a little out of sorts. That was my point. Yeah. I was. We just get to this time of the year too, and you need in our line of work. It starts up in August and late August, and this is kind of the time when you need to get your time off and take your break. So yeah, it's just, and then gear up again for the fall because football is the king, right?
So you're saying you're gonna take time off next week during the golf tournament at Detroit, right?
I actually am going to take time off next week.
I knew it.
Well, last year I think I was on for this tournament, and I asked
you were crying
to go
for golf to come back to Detroit.
I actually asked to go
town, and no.
Kirk will tell you I asked to go last year, and he said, "No, I think we got to cover it." So I said, "Okay," because I mostly just want to go and hang out with you.
Was it more like, do I have to go cover golf?
No. I called him up and said, "Hey, I noticed I didn't get any media thing. Is it too late? Can I go out there?" And he said, "No, we got it. We got it.
I'm going to put you on the list. I'm going to tell Kirk you missed out last year. You really want to come.
I wanted to come out and hang out with you.
Yeah, but it was fun. So when you came out that one time. Yeah.
So I'm not sure that I'll be here next week. So, yeah, you can handle it though, or we'll run one of the greatest hits. Robin will figure something out. In any case, all right, let's wrap this up, man. Let's thank the people we need to thank and get on out. We'll start with Robin Chan, of course, the producer who makes this possible. Kirkland Crawford, our sports editor. Anjanette Delgado, an co-executive producer, and I think along with Kirk, I don't know, everybody's got their hands in it somehow. And Nicole Avery.
Oh no! Nicole Avery Nichols.
No. I was trying to think.
Former boss of Shawn Windsor, former columnist.
Yeah. Have we thanked her yet?
No, because we didn't do it last week.
Yeah. So she's our new editor at the paper. She's our new editor at the newspaper, and we definitely want to thank her, Nicole Avery Nichols. And we want to thank the listener, right? Who, we're not going to be here without y'all. You can find us where, Carlos?
Anywhere you find your podcasts, on Shawn's MySpace page or CompuServe.com, somewhere like that, or Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Find us. Like us, rate us, tell us what you think. Send Shawn an email, a text, whatever you'd like, DM, Insta, whatever, and tell him how much you love him and how much you dislike me.
Or the opposite, because that's probably more likely true. All right, man. Good to have you back. That was fun, and we'll be back next week, one way or the other, with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn.